Joining me again to talk Penn State football. Chris really knows his stuff. We just had a long conversation about some things, and we're coming on here to talk about it. Chris had some topics he wanted to discuss, and again, like Chris really knows his stuff. He has his opinions on Campbell and what they're doing right now. He's going to talk about that, and I agree with him. So me, him, and Brett just had a conversation about it. So we're going to talk about that. Running back, RB1, linebacker U in Indiana, because I've said before about how we haven't been linebacker U for a while, and Chris has his theory on it. But yeah, Chris, and check him out on Big Ten Huddle too. He's always on there. He's good at it. He has good shows on there. Those guys have a pretty good channel, and Chris goes on. It's usually one of the more popular episodes when Chris goes on. So, Chris, welcome back in. How you doing?
I'm good. How you guys doing? Well,
good.
How are you saying you guys doing, Brett?
Yeah. Good, man.
It's all good, man. You want me just to jump into it, like topic by topic here, then, or
sure? Yeah, we can start with Campbell if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm on my phone here. If there's people in the chat that are saying stuff, I can't see it because for some reason I don't know how to get the chat up here. Just to give you guys a heads up, if somebody's asking me questions. Oh, all right.
Yeah, no one's commented yet, but I'll pull it up. And if my computer resets, Chris, it shouldn't. But if it does, then just keep talking. I'll come back on.
Yeah, no problem. Usually I could see it. That's why I was saying, just in case, if people had questions or comments that, like, they ask me or just replying to people, and just saying I can't, in case I can't see it.
Yeah, I'll pull them up on the screen. I'll try and keep up. I don't know if I'll be able to because.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm not saying you got to read every comment. I'm just saying, like, here and there, like if somebody has, that's
yeah. All right, man. So you were talking about Campbell and their portal approach right now. What are your thoughts on it?
All right. So here's the thing. Like, everybody just wants to hear the positive stuff and this and that because positive is nicer. I think Campbell has done a pretty good job thus far, but there are some things I'm a little disappointed about, and I just hope it's not a sign for the future. So, and this might have been repetitive. I might have said this on the last show, but the thing going in was, from what Pat Kraft said and alluded to, and I know it's from a couple of personal friends that were connected to BOT members and stuff that, know Pat Kraft is, and you heard it in his audio leak. We were supposed to go big game hunting in the portal and in recruiting. Now that we have some not great NIL, well, pretty darn good NIL. It might not be top 4 like he said, but it's probably top 10. $30 million is a lot of money to play with. And, the head coach, it's up to him, his model. He has a right to do with the money how he sees fit. But we were led to believe that regardless of who the head coach is, that the one understanding was going to be we were going to be more aggressive with NIL in the portal and in recruiting. And I'm talking more aggressive in terms of going after bigger names, like bigger players. And that really, to be honest, that really hasn't happened thus far. Now, I get and I understand the fact that we're replacing half of us. I can't even keep up with the amount of replacements we have and guys leaving, but I know it's probably up to 50, 60 players that we, roster players we're probably replacing. So when it comes to having to replace that many players, yes, you can't go out and just, you can't go out and get 5 or 6 big name guys and then, not have money left for everybody else. You have to bargain shop. You have to spread that money out. The player, and I have no issue with any of the Iowa State players coming in. That's not what this isn't about him bringing in Iowa State players. Well, a lot of those top Iowa State players are actually pretty good, and I think they're going to do very well at Penn State. So and there's familiarity with obviously Campbell and his system. Now, what I'm saying is, like, okay, so some of the players you're bringing in are going to be starters. you're gonna need guys that some will be starters, some of them will be depth pieces, rotational players, and then there's going to be guys that are just bodies for just practice squad guys, because that's what every team has. That's what every team has, and that's fine, that's understandable. But it is a little disappointing that he hasn't went out and targeted some of the bigger name guys that we thought we were going to, we would see. And I'm talking specifically at wide receiver, not just wide receiver, but that's a big one because, he brought in this Chase Sowell, who looks like a pretty good player, Brett Eskelsden from, I don't know if I'm saying the name right, Eskelsden or whatever, from Iowa State, and we got Kobe Howard. After those three guys, who do we have? We don't have anybody with experience. Now, historically, from my understanding, listening to Matt Campbell, and I talked to some Iowa State guys, just like messaging them, and he likes a vertical passing game. That's like Matt Campbell is good with a vertical passing game. So he's bringing in taller receivers, bigger bodied receivers. And I just think that, because he was at Iowa State, and Jaden Higgins is an example. Like, Jaden Higgins was a first-round receiver last year. He's with the Texans, or a couple of years ago. He played in 2024 with Iowa State, and he was a 1,000-yard receiver. And so was Jalen Knoll. But Jaden Higgins, I don't think, was like this top recruit or top portal guy, and they developed him into one of the better receivers in the country. He became a first-round pick. And I also think because he was at Iowa State, to supplement not being able to recruit top talent, he went after bigger receivers to try to help supplement. In other words, you have two low-level receivers. One guy's 5'11", 6'4", another guy's 6'3". They're athletically around the same. Let's go with the taller guy. I think he's kind of taken that same approach with going after a lot of these receivers because they're all big-bodied guys. But I just hope he's not being overconfident, thinking that he could just do it at Iowa State, transfer that same philosophy to Penn State while not going after any big-name guys, because every other school is going after big-name players. And again, I get we have to spread the money around, but I still thought we would have been a little more aggressive with bringing in some bigger names, at least a few. You had Quincy Porter, who was kind of close to going to Penn State, but he didn't because of NIL. And we have the money now. Quincy Porter's a big-bodied receiver from New Jersey, went to Ohio State. He didn't play, but he was only a true freshman. And here's the thing. You lock up a Quincy Porter, you could potentially have that kid another 2-3 years. And you have this big-time wide receiver one. And I doubt he's going to be a bust. You never know. You never know with these guys. Some of the best-looking players could end up being a bust. But I've seen a lot in Quincy Porter where I just find it hard to believe he won't be a very, very good receiver. He might not be this 5-star to everybody, but he's going to be a very good receiver. And they didn't even look at Quincy Porter. Another receiver, Mylan Graham, from another true freshman receiver from Ohio State. They showed a little bit of interest, but that's it. They have no visit set up for Mylan Graham, for Quincy Porter, nothing. Now, on the flip side, you get a new coach. Michigan gets a new coach with Kyle Whittingham. They're bringing in Jamari French, I believe, a true freshman receiver, another 5-star, high 4-star, really good athletic receiver. He's about ready to commit to Michigan. So why is it always Penn State? It's just Penn State and Clemson. We're always we're the only big-time programs that don't go attack big names with NIL. Why is that? So it's a little frustrating. Again, I understand having to replace a lot of guys, and we did bring in some good players, some solid players, but just thought we'd see a little more from everything we heard in the offseason. And it really hasn't been there. It's let's just fast forward to, and I know I'm looking ahead. So let's just say whatever happens this year happens. Chase Sowell leaves. You're going into 2027 with Kobe Howard, this Brett Eskelsden, and nobody else that has up to this point any kind of all Penn State has right now Well, you got Peter Gonzalez, who's coming off injuries, who hasn't played. Lyric Samuel, who looks like a good recruit, who's just a freshman, hasn't played at all, and a bunch of low-level 2026 guys. So you're going to have 2 receivers, as it stands right now, that you'd be going into the 27 class. Like, and I'm looking ahead. Where's the portal? Where's bringing in young portal guys that could be like top portal receivers where we could not, like, the one spot that really hurt Penn State over the years has been that big time number 1 receiver. And you thought he was going to bring a guy in, and maybe Sowell's the guy, but Sowell's only here 1 year. So that was a little. Now, other than that, he's done a good job. He's done a good job at defensive tackle. We got a lot of big bodies. Bigger doesn't always mean better. Now, bigger is going to mean better as opposed to what we had in this last year in 25, because it was the worst defensive tackle play I've ever seen at Penn State. I've been watching Penn State football since the late 80s, and I'm not being hyperbolic. It was the worst defensive tackle play I've ever seen as a fan of Penn State in the last 30 years or so. It was 25, 30 years. It was horrible. So we're going to be better. And some of these big guys, they look like they're pretty good and could move. And it's just, you just see a pattern with Campbell. Like, Iowa State being out in the Midwest, it's not Big Ten, but it's Big Ten country. They built a roster up for old school, old fashioned Big Ten style football. They couldn't go out and recruit top talent, so they just went out. They got big bodies and played old fashioned. Let's just get big. Let's get physical. And that's nice. But I just hope he realized, I'm sure he does at Penn State, this isn't Iowa State. You got to adapt your philosophy a little bit, and you still have to go out and get top talent. You're not going to go out and get all these 3-stars and just hope you could develop them. And it just falls into place. So that's just a little bit of a concern. Like, here's an example. Defensive tackle was our biggest need. We lost everybody. And so we needed to bring in 4 or 5 defensive tackles in the portal. And they brought some big boys in, like I said, and there's some good names. One of the top portal D tackles, though, was a guy named Francis Brew from Pitt. Kid lit it up. Kid was a really solid this was a top defensive tackle. Kind of like an Anthony Zettel type style player. Not exactly. I'm just, wouldn't that have been nice to go and get him? And they didn't even look at him. The kid's right there at Pitt. You got a great player right now. Not that it matters if we recruit nationally. I don't know where he's from originally. But if you got a great player at Pitt, a great defensive tackle, and you need defensive tackles, they didn't even go look at this guy. So like everything thus far has been bargain shopping. It's all money ball. I get you have to do that a little bit here, replacing so many guys. I just hope the money ball thing isn't a sign for him that this is what he's going to be like every recruiting class, every portal class. You got to spend, man. You have to be willing to go out and get the big names. Now, something I want to transition to, I'm going to skip ahead to the Indiana part because it ties into what I'm saying. Then we'll come back to the RB1 and the LBU.